Wow. This conversation with Amita is going to take you places that are going to stretch your capacities.
Did you feel stretched in this conversation?
Fortunately, no.
All right. I didn't
But
either. I thought it was very benign.
why I hear that word and I'm like, well, see, the thing is, talking about menopause is something not a lot of men do.
Yeah.
And
And apparently
apparently,
not a lot of women.
right? And that's one of the most important aspects of this subject is that we've got to communicate more about it. And
Yeah.
so I am actually going to implore and beg you who are seeing and hearing this to stick with it. It might be not your cup of tea, but trust me, eventually it's going to be an important subject in your life one way or another.
Yeah.
And learning something about it now and getting after the resources that she has in her website that she's taken hours and hours and years to research and provide remedies and things for us. It's so worth it. And she's such a sweetheart and she's so generous with her stories and with what she has to say.
I agree. Yep. So get ready to ride the menopausal moped outlaw episode with Amita and subscribe and support Blast and Compton Cowboys. And we appreciate you and enjoy the ride.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Bestuurziger wegen dem.
Joi, iets niet, joh.
Sitaki ubenza, anika sirikie.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Welcome to another episode of Moped Outlaws. Today, our guest is Amita Sharma. And Amita has a very long list of credentials, but probably the most important thing is that she's part of something called nourishdoc.com. She's done a lot of work to bring together resources, and she does a YouTube that's also based on these ideas of revealing what is hidden from women and men in relationship to how the impacts of menopause occur to our society. And I'll just start with my own personal experience. I'm a man of a certain age, and as a result, I've been through the process.
You've had menopause?
And no, I've had menopause. My pause. I paw, right? No, just kidding. But I've been through this with my partner, and I think we do a terrible job as a society of preparing women and men, and then also providing resources and accommodations for the way it impacts people. So thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing what you do. I just want to start, what got you into this? Where did you go to school? What brought you into this?
Like you said, this whole, before I hit menopause, actually, I went into perimenopause, which I think barely anyone knows what happens during those transition years. And same thing, I started getting all these symptoms and strange things started happening to me, and it started impacting everything, my relationship, my career, of course, my physical, my emotional. I was like a complete going crazy. So when something impacts you so much, then you start getting deeper into it. And the more I got deeper into it, I started getting so much data that how women during this age group don't talk about it, and how it's impacting their relationships with their partners, like you said just now. And I'll share the data, how it can all bring together. So that's kind of, I started digging deeper into it, and I said, hey, this is a topic worth for me to, yes, correct.
So I realized contemplating this coming hangout with you, I don't know what menopause really is. Like I have a textbook thought, like, okay, the hormones, change, and and she becomes unruly. That's kind of my, but what is it really?
So, first of all, I'm not a medical doctor. I want to put a big disclaimer here. What I've done is I have talked about 3,000, 4,000 experts from all over the world, and I've done a very deep research in the last 2, 3 years. So the definition of menopause is really that, what the clinical or the medical doctor would tell you is a woman who hasn't had her period for 12 consecutive months. After that, she's technically menopause. She hits menopause. And then for the rest of her life, she is postmenopausal. That is the technical definition. But a lot of people don't know that the years before a woman gets menopause, which I just explained, there is a term called perimenopause, and that can start 10 years or maybe earlier for women. There was just an interview on NBC just a couple of days back, right? And they had invited a gynecologist, and there's just a recent research that has come out that women are experiencing perimenopause in their mid to late 30s now. That is alarming because we women now are getting married later in our years, as opposed to my age group. I got married when I was in my 20s, but women are getting married in their 30s. And certainly in mid 30s, you're hitting all these strange perimenopausal symptoms, the fertility. Can you imagine the impact it can have on the society and the relationships of the fertility kind of going down south, and so many other things that could happen in the society?
Couldn't it be that that's a biological, natural response to the planet being like, wait, we have enough. We need to tone this human population down.
Human population. No, I think, I don't know. I mean, that's a metaphysical kind of a overarching kind of a thought process. But jokes apart, there's a lot of factors. You could say food supply. Our food supply is so infested with toxins, pesticides, and we don't pay attention as a society. I'm talking not generally me personal or you personal. Then the stress levels have escalated for women. Women's bodies are not designed to take so much stress, the work and the whatever is going on, right? So all those factors, and of course your cultural and ethnic factors also come into play. But the 30s is way too young for you to be studying these perimenopausal symptoms. That's the point I'm trying to make. And they are coming out with studies, and this is United States studies, by the way, not any other third world country study.
So there's this element of microplastics and the proliferation of that is clearly providing evidence of hormone disruption. We're also seeing earlier onset of menses in younger women.
Yes.
And so something's moving up the biological imperative in American culture. And
yes.
I think we consider that holistically. It's not just that women are getting perimenopause earlier, they're also becoming developed earlier.
Yes.
So that is probably a result of many, many factors. What I asked before, but I'm curious about, is you said that you started to have the experience yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what happened for you, was that you decided to look into it more and more because of your own perspective on it. But I'm curious about your life prior to that. How did you come here? How did you get to the place where you are in your life? Who are you really?
Oh, okay. That is a long story, but I'll try to condense it as quickly as I can. I studied architecture. I am not, my story is that from educational point of view, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be creative, create all those things. And then one thing led to another, and I got into software, where I was creating similar things, experiences for, different experiences, like work for companies like Walmart, big Western Union, all kind of things. Now, during this whole corporate life that I was going through, I was literally in my 40s at that time. That's when I started experiencing hot flashes or some strange symptoms while I was having meetings with, 20 men. Most of the engineers are men, even in today's day and age. And that's when I personally started getting embarrassed, and I was too scared to open up and talk to anyone with the fear of being judged by not only by my colleagues who think something is going wrong, I'm getting a heart attack, or even with the HR, I thought, oh my God, they're going to judge me. I'm in my whatever I can't do my work properly. So it was long before I started thinking that I'm going to one day start a company in this space. At that time, I just wanted to fix myself because I couldn't afford to lose a job. So that's kind of where my thought process was. And I was not a very vocal person. I was generally a very introvert, not very easy to openly talk about things the way I talk now. So all these thoughts, I went through hell for 10 years. That's who I am. And holding my thoughts inside, not letting it out. And then this just happened because I started researching into holistic. I actually fixed myself using all kind of experimentation that you can think of. And this just happened about 3 years back when, I said, hey, enough of this corporate. I've done enough. I should try to see something. I have so much experience, so much work. What can I do to give back? What can I do? So this is something that surfaced at the top of my list is a person like me who doesn't talk much, who doesn't open up. When am I going to do it? This is what happens when you hit menopause, right? Mm-hmm. You have this thing, oh, what am I doing on this earth? Like, am I going to be quiet all my life? You know what I mean? Like, am I never going to be outspoken of what I genuinely feel inside me? And what was my way? So this was my way of speaking up. And letting, when I started, first thing I did was I wanted to talk to other women. So I talked about 3,000 of them around the world. And all of them, I was shocked. I thought I'm coming from a culture, like an Indian culture, where it's a little bit subdued. I've grown up like that in my family, that women are supposed to behave in a certain way. They're supposed to work. They're supposed to cook. They're supposed to look beautiful. But yes, they are not supposed to talk, right? That's the culture I have been brought up with in my generation. And I thought maybe it's happening to my, this kind of a generation of women, and specifically some ethnic cultures. But I was shocked. All ethnic cultures, I can truly say, it didn't matter whether it was an African American, Latino, Caucasian, whoever, they all had the same exactly verbatim. Oh my God, I can't talk about it. What the heck you are doing? I'm amazed. Why didn't you just do it? That's kind of is a little bit of my background and story where I literally landed. I'm like, hey, you grew up in US, you feel like that? You bet I do feel like that, right? And that's women growing up in United States here, they are feeling like that. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Everybody feels like that. The majority of the women, I should say that. So that's what got me to where I am right now. I think it was a lot of support from all these women. I should say that I would not be sitting here if they had not supported me with words of encouragement every single day. So many times I thought of quitting. I said, oh my God, I don't have it in me to talk about these topics, which are very sensitive. But then someone will tell me every single day, just keep at it, keep at it.
Yeah. Well,
so
I think Mark and I both,
yeah.
And it brings to mind, like, even sexuality, generally speaking, isn't talked about. And then you get into feminine sexuality and the cycle of the period and, becoming fertile and all this. It's just taboo. There's even, my father was Jewish, and, in the very traditional Jewish, the women were separated when they had their period.
Yeah. See, that's exactly what I'm saying. It happens in so many cultures. And the other thing is, in so many cultures, I'm not talking about United States generally, it's really on the women's side, it's more focuses on the reproductive health, right? So women, when you have the kids, after you've had the kids, then it's like, oh, who cares? You've already delivered 2 kids, It's
We're done with you.
So it's like, no, even from medical, see, the strangest thing is, I was talking about this interview with a gynecologist, right, about the perimenopause hitting earlier in the women. The other thing she talked about is that gynecologists or medical doctors are not taught about menopause. Only 6 to 8 hours are devoted to a topic on menopause in the 15 years of their studies.
Wow.
And they are never mentioned the word of perimenopause. Never. She talked about that just 3 days back. Can you imagine the women? Your medical doctor, your primary care physician, you go to, and she or he is clueless about what you're going through. And that's exactly what happened with me. They were clueless. They didn't know what to do with me. Says, you're perfectly fine. I'm like, no, I'm not. I can't even wake up in the morning. I'm so fatigued. My eyes are swollen. I'm like a complete mess with 2 young kids. I can't function. Fix me. I said, no, you're fine. Because they were not taught about that. If someone had told me, you crazy woman, you're going through perimenopause, your hormones are this, whatever,
Yeah.
It's really clear that this issue suffers from the broader shadow of patriarchal dominance of the culture and the way that certain things just don't get addressed properly. And in the medical community, I too ran into this issue with my partner. There's a vast ignorance, and there's really like one sort of thing in the doctor's bag, which is hormone replacement therapy. Here, take a bunch of these things, and they'll fix you. Well, what about breast cancer? What about all the other things that hormone replacement therapy disrupts? And I'm curious, what have you found in the things that you're offering on the website? And you said you did a couple things differently yourself. What are some really helpful things that are not common knowledge for people?
So yeah, first of all, you're absolutely right. Hormone replacement therapy is the first to go to if you go to a medical provider. And I'm not against HRT. Some women might need HRT, but the point we are trying to say in Nourish Talk is that there's so much that can be done, right? Through your lifestyle, through your dietary, through using some holistic therapies, cleansing yourself. And of course, so much that can be done. And that's what we are trying to say is that, no matter if you go HRT or not HRT, you need to change your entire sort of like a regimen, right? Whether it's a diet or anything. When this woman starts perimenopause, not when she hits menopause. See, there's a huge difference. The perimenopause is 10 years or whatever. For me, it lasted a decade almost. And during that time, if a woman does not take care of herself, so some of the things they can do is fix their diet, right? Change their exercise routines, learn about the breathing techniques, learn about use aromatherapy, hypnotherapy, as an example, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, simple mental therapy, right? Because we as women are going through a lot of emotional upheaval during this time. We need therapy because 50% of us suffer from anxiety and depression and some suicidal thoughts. Then we also need relationship counseling because 60% of us in women who are going through menopause in UK and US go through divorce. That is another thing we never talked about. Loss of libido happens. We never talk about that, right? Because it's like, oh my God, why the heck are you talking about it? You can fix that by using some pelvic health, physiotherapy. So all these things can be done if you just learn simple habits day by day. And like I said, I'm not against HRT. We're not saying don't do HRT, but you can do so many ways using foods that have natural estrogen, for example, phytoestrogens, or some of the supplements that can help you. So that's what we are advocating, right?
So what are some of the essential oils that would support an aromatherapy program, and what are some of the replacement foods that would assist in supporting a woman's hormonal balance?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not a medical doctor, but this is all research. So there's a strong research when a woman is hitting perimenopause, the estrogen, progesterone, those female sex hormones start going down, right? So phytoestrogens, the natural foods that have natural phytoestrogens, if women start supplementing that on a daily basis, which I started doing, like eating cabbage, cauliflower, flax seeds, I do that every single day, for hormonal balance. right? These kind of things, if I'm supplementing it with spinach and these kind of foods which have natural phytoestrogens. Now, the other data point I want to talk about is that there's a lot of research that has been done that Japanese women do not have hot flashes because of the soy that they have been consuming for decades and decades, and before that, their moms, as opposed to Latino American women or African American women have very aggravated hot flashes because of the processed food that they have been consuming. So the point I'm trying to make is the food is can be, we know food is medicine, but you can use food very creative in a way that works with you, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Right. But you're talking about like generations of food habits affect an individual's experience with premenopause and menopause. So,
Yes.
did you find in your own experience that, let's say, a span of 1 year or even 6 months,
Yeah.
improvements are shown with a diet change?
Absolutely, absolutely. See, I did not do only diet. I did a thorough cleansing. So if I share my personal experience, I used acupuncture a lot. I go to acupuncture once a month. I used Ayurvedic therapies like massage. Ayurveda. I don't know if you're familiar a little bit, but just on a high level, I used medicated oil massage therapies and cleansing therapies that Ayurveda offers. It's beautiful. Some of the things that they have. Then I personally use breathing techniques to help myself. And then I would cleanse myself like for 3 days or 7 days, go on a mono diet, like a khichdi diet and simple lentils and rice. So I did a lot of things to help myself so that, of course, diet, exercise. I started, weightlifting, right? Taking some of the strength training, which has a research that shows the strength training, how it can help with the bone loss that starts happening to men and women, actually, as we start going beyond age 30 or so, right?
And it's weight training different than yoga practices? Like you don't get that sort of resistance in yoga that you do with a weight?
You do. Yoga uses its own body weight, right?
Right.
In yoga, we're not and there are different types. See, yoga is a lot more twisting and turning, right? And it's a full body exercise. Like you literally are turning your organs, in some of the postures, right? If you just go twisted here, the twisted there. Now the body pump or the strength training, just kind of lifting weights, like you're doing only one muscle at a time, is what I would say. That's a big difference. In yoga, you necessarily, in some of the postures, you're not only working with one muscle, you will be working with the entire body. So you do get, to answer your questions, absolutely, you're using your own body weight. Yoga is amazing. It has a ton of research with improving bone mass as well. But I personally used both. I like I said, I would do yoga twice a week, but I would also supplement it with strength training twice a week, as an example. Some of the even dance is also using your body weight, right? I would do dance once a week. So anything that you can do that is helping, your body weight, like, and it has research. All the things that we are advocating has some kind of a research in PubMed or some kind of evidence that they don't have very detailed clinical trials as you would have for, medication, but they have done smaller randomized, experiments, so to speak, on quite a few of these herbs. Like yoga has amazing lot of research. Meditation has ton of research. We know that, right? Breathing techniques, we know, has a ton of research. So these kind of things, is the problem, is that most of us don't even know it exists.
Do you think it's possible, like you just mentioned, medication has a ton of research, and we know that the medication field, the pharmaceutical field, there's a ton of money, and it's in their
Yes.
best interest to have research supporting, hey, take these drugs. Whereas
Yes.
a dietary change or yoga practices don't have that kind of financial abundance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, see, that's the problem. I mean, how. I mean, that's a really bigger discussion of how pharmaceutical is, I don't want to go into that discussion, but on a high level, we know the money is controlled in in the Western world by pharmaceuticals, and yogis have no money. I mean, comparatively, alternative. We call this an alternative and complementary medicine, and we don't have the lobby for that kind of a alternative and complementary medicine in most of the countries. It's not only United States, and the money is limited here as opposed to here. So absolutely, there is an issue of money, a huge issue of money, right?
I'm wanting to bring the conversation a little closer to something personal, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned that you had kids, and that you also mentioned that the time when most people get divorced is around menopause.
Yes.
And the dietary transition is really important as well, because when a woman needs to eat more cabbage and more cauliflower and soy, a man is wanting to avoid those kinds of estrogen chopper foods.
Yes.
So there's this division of food that occurs, and then there's the
Yes.
sexual function challenge that occurs. And
Yes.
if you don't have strong intimacy in that period of time, it's very difficult to maintain a close connection, a bonded connection. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about, one, did your marriage survive? And what were the things that your husband did that really made an impact on your sensuality and your ability to stay bonded in that sort of way?
Yeah, no. My marriage definitely survived. I'm happily married. But I did see quite a few of my friends even having issues. Okay, these kind of issues that you're talking about, and I think what I can say is that the reason some of the things didn't work for some of the couples that I observed very closely was the lack of open communication. That is very, very important in any relationship, is the lack of open communication. And I've seen so many of them just feeling, oh, how can I talk about this, that there's a loss of intimacy with my partner, right? Or there is having issues, but it's also medical for a lot of women. They might have pain, they're experiencing pain during this phase of this menopause, and they're too kind of like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, or I don't want to get help. So my thing was, in this case, in my personal thing, is that, like I said, I got very proactive into my problems that I was personally going through, because it was too much at stake. You know what I mean? Like, your family's at stake now, right? Your kid, all those things. So I was very proactive in taking care of myself day in, day out, and I got a lot of support, at home, because I talked about it openly. What I was going through is what I'm trying to say, and that's how I think. A lot of women don't do it. That's one of the problems. They don't even talk to their girlfriends. They will talk about fashion and jewelry, but when it comes down to this, even in these are too sensitive topics to talk to each other. They again feel that they're going to be judged by other friends. Oh my God, this is what is happening, and whatever. We never talk about that as women, seriously.
Yeah, and that pressure of we value women in terms of what their bodies produce, their work, and the things. But the question that I still am focused on is, what could women ask of their male partners that most male partners don't know that they need to know? Because I know that men, when you tell them, oh, this is what I need, they're often very happy to hear that, right?
Yes.
And particularly around menopause, men whose sexual activity is impacted and limited in terms of that become resentful and withdrawn, and then they start to get distractible, and those sorts of things happen. So what are the kinds of things that a woman can mention, if she's got the courage to communicate to, that she needs from a man?
So she should talk about whatever she's feeling as per the symptoms. See, every woman is going to experience different type of symptoms. What I personally felt, like I explained you, I couldn't sleep and hot flashes, and my brain was cooked in the morning, not productive because I couldn't think, all groggy. So that was my personal symptoms, and I would put on weight very easily, and I figured out how to control that. So I communicated openly with my partner, with my husband, right? So what I'm trying to say is that women should feel, since they've been so in a relationship, to be able to openly communicate to their spouses or the partners, or that they are going through this, and together what can they do. If the help needs to, if you need to seek help, you seek help. Like I did seek help, is what I'm trying to say, because I was so miserable. Now that's irrespective of the fact that the help didn't do anything. Right? But I needed therapy. I'm not ashamed to say that, because mentally, emotionally, I was such a mess. See, the other thing that happens is, most of us as women, we hold our thoughts internal, and any trauma that has happened in our previous life, before we hit this perimenopause, menopause. But the perimenopause, menopause, when it starts happening, the hormones start going fluctuating. We also have to deal with our old, like a childhood trauma, or any conflict or confrontations that we haven't been able to resolve. So what my thing is, the reason I have survived is because I have been open about my feelings, open about my communication with my loved ones. And most of us women think that men won't understand, or their husbands won't understand, and we keep it to ourselves, and we end up talking to the wrong people, when the discussion should be directed at the person who is day in, day out with you. That's my 2 cents. I don't know what maybe you can share your experience, your personal experience, Mark. I don't know how it went for you and your partner.
Yeah. I have a commitment that I have to honor, which is that I don't talk about my partners and my experience publicly.
Okay. That's okay.
I'd be willing, and I want to try to answer the question without violating that commitment. So I just wanted to preface it by saying that being a better listener is something men can do.
Yeah.
Creating a moment where you're actually fully attentive and curious about what it is that's happening for the person you're in relationship with. I've noticed this is happening, or last night you were sweating in the bed. Like, what's going on for you, right? Just being, and then listening and acknowledging, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to fix it. Those things help me a lot. The other thing is that, speaking generally, this is that sensual touch changes its form. And most men's imagination around that is very singular around penetration. And so it's a really powerful tool to learn what sensual pleasure can be beyond something like that, because a lot of women experience enormous amounts of discomfort as a result of penetration. And that's a really important piece.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. I think listening, you said the right thing. Men, obviously, if they care for their relationships, they should listen more and encourage their partners to, if they are experiencing, this is a very sensitive topic, if they are experiencing all kind of issues most of the women go through, we know that should be a little bit trying to figure out proactively together how to get through it. It's a couple's, woman alone is not going through menopause. I think the couple is going through menopause, if I may say so, because it is impacting your relationship with the partner in a way, right? So that
empathy suffers when estrogen drops. And so this person that's been the solace for so many, solace for the mom and dad, and solace for the kids, and the empathy capacity of women goes down. And so they have less to give in terms of comfort and solace to their partners. And so as men, we need to learn to provide for ourselves to some degree, but also pick up the slack and provide empathy back for them.
Absolutely.
So how does that affect, like, if we keep it very personal, you mentioned you have 2 children. So if it impacted you so powerfully personally and therefore impacted your marriage. What about your children? Were you open and transparent with them of no?
I did not know myself what the heck was happening. I was trying to figure it out. And I think, to my this thing, like I said, I talked about 3,000 women. Most of the women told me the same thing. They were confused. Confused is a word.
So
I would say
wild.
a lot of women would say that they were completely confused. They did not know what was hitting them. If they are so confused and not knowledgeable about what is going to happen and what's happening, how can you relate to other people, right? And I mean, that too to the
Right.
kids, right?
Right. So what
So
I'm hearing is like this thing
yeah,
starts happening and your personal reality is really kind of shattering.
yeah, because you don't know what's happening, and if you go like in my case, like I proactively look for help, and if the help your physician or medical providers at that time, things have changed, of course, in the last 10 years. I'm not saying things are the same now, but at that time, if the help is not doing anything, what are you supposed to do? How are you going to explain anything what is happening, except for saying you're going cuckoo? In my case, my the joke was, okay, I had teenage kids and they're going crazy, and so am I going crazy, so everybody's crazy at home, right?
Wow.
I mean, in a joking way, right? But the reality is, if you are not empowered as a woman, if you are not really understand what's happening with your body and why it is happening, and this I have heard from so many of the women, it's like, and then you are absolutely right, Mark, you're absolutely right about the empathy part. The empathy part for a woman as she hits menopause goes down, and I have heard that from so many postmenopausal women. I don't care what other people think about me. I mean, verbatim, women will have told me, I just want to live my life. I have not lived my life. I have been always taking care of others. Now I want to take care of myself. This exact phrase verbatim I have heard from at least 500 or maybe I don't know, so many women have told me, and out of that, so many women have separated and no longer with their partners or spouses. And I didn't go deeper into if the intimacy was an issue, but quite a few of them did say yes, it was an issue, and they were not being able to openly communicate, and their spouses or the partners did not understand what they were going through, and they finally gave up, and here it is.
So what are some of the things that are available at nourishdoc.com that are resources for women who are going through perimenopause and menopause? What are the kinds of things you're trying to achieve with that?
Yeah, so first step is the self-care, right? That is the first step. We women have to understand what is it that we're going to go through. So what I want to achieve is every woman should be educated enough in the sense, in this subject matter, what is going to happen to her once she hits perimenopause, which is, like I said, irregular periods and the hormonal fluctuation and the journey of that. So the first step is we have perimenopause or menopause. So for younger women, we have different kind of simple self-care tools or self-care programs that are all done by experts from all over the world, and they can go through it by themselves without getting any expertise help or anything. So that is what we're going to achieve. Step number one is learning about it, learning to manage about it, and how can you use holistic therapies, and of course learning about HRT as an option as well. So that is the first step that we at Nourish Doc want to really achieve, and we are releasing an app in March to be able to offer women very affordable, like $10 a month. You can go through all this with that, and then the next step is, okay, I understand, as an example, perimenopause. I am going through these symptoms. What can I do? Okay, things are not getting fixed. The next step is, okay, how can I get help from an expert? Expert can help me. whether it is whichever expert that I'm having problem with. So the kind of experts I'm talking about is ranging from the yoga to a sexual therapist, to a naturopathic doctor, to a physical therapist, to a pelvic health specialist, whatever a woman might, in this area, there's so many different things a woman can have. So then you can go to, okay, I need one-on-one, or I need give me everything, concierge. It's really a tiered approach, a step-by-step approach that we thought we should take. First is just awareness, discovery, so to speak. Next is, okay, once I understand the discovery, how do I fix myself, whether by myself or with the help of other experts?
So as I'm looking at it, there's quite a range of available things. One of the things that really stands out is magnets and energy therapies.
Yeah.
How does that impact menopause, and what are the treatment modalities for that?
So I know I've read about magnets. I didn't find much research, so I don't know much comment. I don't want to comment on something that I personally am not, I didn't find much research, let's put it this way. So, but yeah, people talk about magnets, and people also talk about, in acupuncture, some of them, how they stick the needles and then you can put on the ear beads right here, and that can help you. So whatever we are doing at Nourish Talk has to be validated with some kind of a research behind it. I didn't find much research. Maybe I'll look into it a little bit more. But the last time I looked, I didn't find much research into magnets. But maybe the things have changed now.
But Mark, are you saying you're seeing magnets on her website?
Yeah.
No, on our website?
Yeah. If you scroll down to, there's a graphic, and it shows a multiple of modalities, and it covers holistic medicine, mind-body therapies, body manipulation, energy therapies, diet, and herbal remedies or therapies. So above the energy therapies, it talks about Reiki, Qigong, biofields, and magnets. And I think that's really important, right? It also talks about acupuncture under holistic medicine and Ayurveda, which we've already spoken about. But I think the piece here is, and this actually takes it into a little broader subject matter, the range of healing modalities that's available to North Americans through the traditional health insurance profile is very narrow. And it has to be validated by medical science, which I think is a healthy thing. But we've also seen, especially in places like where Greg and I live, in California and New York and places like that, that there are actually quite a bit of alternatives to that are more broad and give us more tools. And so as I was reading through your website, I was like, ooh, like magnets, or Qigong is energy management, right?
Yes.
Right. And so these things are not taught very well in our culture, and you have to dig for them and you have to find them. And so balancing your energy resources, both in the electrical magnetic realm, the blood flow realm, are so much a part of this. Like you were saying earlier, breath regulates the nervous system. I just wanted to see, the thread I'm on is, what are the resources that someone who goes to your website gets when they join up? And I was just picking that one out of a hat. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. In the medical profession, the way in the North America, in the Western, well, not in so much in Europe, I would say, but especially in North America, the medical means going to, like fixing yourself. I would say that physically means going to a medical doctor, and not really getting into this whole natural holistic therapies, as opposed to if you go in Asia or even Europe. Right, even in Europe, some of the holistic therapies are people are quite well versed with, but not here. So how do you bring it together? And then it also makes it very difficult for an average consumer, because they're not generally covered by insurance. And first thing we ask is, oh, does my insurance cover it? right? That is so it's out of pocket expense. If I personally have to go see a naturopathic doctor, so many women I talked to, and they said, hey, look, I wanted to go natural. But when I go and want to see a functional medicine doctor, integrative medicine doctor, a naturopathic doctor, it's at least a couple of grand, and it's not small amount of money. And even after that, I don't know if I'm fixed, because it's a continuous thing. Holistic is not one pill. You take one pill and you're going to fix yourself. It's a continuous thing. So that is the other problem that when we were doing research, is the cost. It's so prohibitive for an average person. It's exactly the same way as like, oh, I want to eat organic, but organic is so expensive. I end up going and buying my groceries from whatever, like, a place where it's not organic. It's the same story. How do we fix it? How do we make it so that it becomes mainstream?
Well, one way to do it is to just take account. Like if you and Greg and I are all old enough to realize that 35 years ago, there wasn't as many options in even the grocery stores that are considered to be access points for foods that are whole. There were less options then, and over time, because we've been using our dollars to say this is what we want as consumers, we've been able to create the economic demand for more and more of these things. Like, for instance, we talked earlier about hormone disruptors, and one of the biggest hormone disruptors that we're all exposed to right now is glyphosate, right? And so much of what's happening in our culture around starches is about not having wheat, because that crop has been ruined by Monsanto, and glyphosate is just in everything as a result of and all the processed foods and all those things that are hard for the body to assimilate. And so market forces, i.e., if we're willing to as a culture invest in saying this is what we want, eventually things start to show up, right? Like I personally am going through some challenges that have me researching my whole diet right now. And so this is the wave that drives economic activity. It's also an entrepreneurial opportunity, folks. Like if you come up with a really powerful recognition of something that supports women in this perimenopause and menopausal process, there's a tremendous need out there. And most entrepreneurs, unfortunately, there's still a dominance of men in the entrepreneurial field. They're not even thinking about these market opportunities. So to all you women who are looking for a way to transition your life, you want to live a better life, and well, in a capitalist society, entrepreneurship is a powerful tool. So find something that you think makes an impact and bring it to market. That's a very powerful way for us to engage in healing with each other.
That's a good point, Mark. Like just sort of ducktailing on that. So you created your own company, right, Amita?
Yes.
Was that a brave step for you?
Creating a company was not such a brave step, because a decade back or so, I had, as mentioned earlier, I come from an architectural background, and I wanted to do something creative. And at that time, I had a business on online modern home furnishings. So I did that for about a decade before this phase of my life. So I was very comfortable in I love to create, and that comes naturally to me. But that was, of course, easier for me to do something in an interior design of furnishings, more creative and all that. This was something, of course, it took a lot, because it took a lot of digging, a lot of research, because I am not qualified educational point of view in this space. So it took a lot for me to understand. It took a longer time is what I would like to say, because I need to understand not only, okay, eat this, eat that, but the dynamics of how it all works, right?
Right. But what comes to mind is your wisdom regarding health is experiential. And I think in our Western culture, we've relied quite heavily on an academic knowledge of medicine.
Yeah.
And a lot, I think, is lost in not having that experiential element be a part of the wisdom.
Yeah. And that's my way that's the only way I had to learn because I can't go back to school and be whatever. So my way of learning was interviewing experts, so many of them, 3,000, 4,000 of them, and digging into research as much as I can to understand, it's a complicated space, right? This whole holistic, natural, it's
Right.
not like you said, Mark, it's not the first thing to go to, but on the other hand, the consumer power, like you were talking about, the economic, right, opportunity that can come from consumer demand, the way it has come from companies like Whole Foods. We are all now understand the importance of eating right, at least on a higher level.
Got it. I want to ask you a little bit about the history of your culture, and particularly women,
Mm-hmm.
and whether there's a historical basis for women as chemists and food makers in India and in Indian
Mm-hmm.
culture to
Mm-hmm.
creating the kinds of health responses that we normally don't see as a medicine, but it ultimately is. And what's the history of, cooking and women's power in food in Indian culture, and what are some of the hidden gems that really have helped people in that country and that we could be using more of here?
Yeah. So Indian cooking culture is very rich as far as the using herbs and spices, right, in everyday cooking. And a lot of it is, my grandma, when I was even growing up, you have a small tummy ache, you would not go to a doctor, or you would not seek medical advice at all. All of us grew up with, my grandmother would tell me, okay, take this, like a cumin powder, water, put a little bit of amla, and then your stomach will be fine. So it's rooted in a lot of tradition, and it goes years, 5,000 years back. Now, the other thing that is also inherent is the Ayurveda, right? Ayurveda has stemmed even yoga. Both of these sciences, holistic sciences, have originated from India. So, and Ayurveda is nothing but using different herbs and food as medicine. So using food and herbs comes naturally, right, in most of the Indian cultures. Now, things have changed now because young women do not have time to cook like in Western society today. It's the same. I just got back from India a couple of weeks back, and it's very similar to what Western cultures are now. But few years back, even now, that the cooking culture is so rooted in everyday life. And the other thing in India, at least, I don't know here in America, but in India, people eat fresh food every single day. Every single day, you have to eat fresh food. To a point, some of them will eat fresh for lunch and for dinner. So the cooking is so ingrained in the culture, is what I'm trying to say. And some of the commonly used herbs, like you asked, turmeric. Turmeric now is being like routed as the queen of the supplements. That has been used in Indian curries forever, right? And we know it is anti-carcinogenic, and it's anti-inflammatory, all those things. So turmeric has been used forever and ever. Things like cumin. Cumin is great for your tummy issues, right? And then coriander. Coriander is used every single day. We know it's a big cleanser, like for cleansing. So things like cinnamon. Cinnamon is great for blood sugar. We use it every day. Cinnamon is used in the morning tea. You just sprinkle it a little bit, right? Then we also take some of the lentils. Lentils are used every single day. Curry leaves, right? Curry leaves, you take the curry leaves and you put it in the curry, and that has its own medicinal properties. And what the other thing in Indian cultures they do is they take the lentils, they grind it, and they mix it up with the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the cardamom, all these spices. So they are used on a daily basis. And if you look at the history, Cochin in 1600, 15th century or 16th century, if you go around that was like a world center for spices, right? I'm sure you know, and that's where everywhere in the world the spices were going. So it has a history of using spices, using it on a daily basis for every single meal that in India in Indian culture that is made there as a spice that can have a medicinal value. Now the fact is, if they're adulterated, the spices and all the things. Where there was an article recently that they found some adulteration in all these those masalas, what they call, that I can't speak to. But if they are organic and if they're high quality, they can have a huge medicinal
So
property.
how is India doing in preserving the agricultural base that as provides the level of breadth and diversity of these spices and things, since it's one of the central places for all of these healing substances to come
So
from?
things have improved. There was a lot of adulteration, lot of issues few years back with adulteration. Like I'm saying, even now, they are also having the similar issues. It's such a big country, so many people, but the government that they have now under Modi, they have been advocating. See, it has to come at the highest level, even in this country. If this whole holistic has to reach certain plateau. What has happened in the last 10 years, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, he has advocated this whole holistic therapies to a point that he is the one who's saying that, the things like I told you, use food as medicine. There's a International Yoga Day. The whole country does yoga on one day. Like, he himself is advocating yoga, breathing, and he's created a separate department called Ayush, Ayush, and that houses all these Ayurveda, right? Then acupuncture, naturopathy, homeopathy, all these natural holistic therapies. He's put it under a natural, sort of like a ministry of Ayush, what they call it, and he's put all of them under that and advocating that as a first step to all the population in India. That's the difference. It has to come at that level. Then people say, oh, earlier, if you ask me, when I was growing up in India, I would not take herbs, like manufactured herbs, because they said, no, take medication, because at that time, medicine was becoming more popular at that time, right? Now, people are going, first step is, no, let me take the natural herb. So it has come from a government level. That's what is happening. It's top down, not and bottom up as well, both. In this country, what's happening is it's getting bottom up. I don't know about the top down right now until Elon Musk comes and says, okay.
Well, but wait,
it's not Elon, it's going to be JFK or RFK.
Oh, yeah, JFK. That's right. He's the man.
And there is hope. There is hope with that, gentleman, that there will be from the top down a very healthy.
Yes.
And we just participate by saying, this is the thing we want to buy. We want these things. We want cardamom. We want cinnamon. We want cumin. We want turmeric. And we want it in ways that is not harmful to the environment and that doesn't tap out all of the supply, right?
So
we need
no more smoking nutmeg.
Yeah, that was never a good idea. We're getting to the point now where we kind of have to land this plane. Okay. It's really fascinating. Just to mention it one more time, and we'll put this in the show notes, but it's nourishdoc.com, which is nourishdoc.com. There's also a YouTube channel that is youtube.com/nourishdoc. Definitely go there for more resources and more information about you, Amita. And strange as it sounds right now, we have a question that we ask all of our guests.
Right, but before we do, if
you do that, something's going to happen, Greg. And you go ahead.
No, I know you got. I just want to reiterate that in this conversation, Mark and I are straight males, and so we'd be in relationship with a woman who's going through menopause. And what I heard from both of you is communication is the most powerful thing a man can participate in. And I just wanted to reiterate that, if you're in a partnership, listen and be willing to communicate. All right, so here's our traditional question, Amita, that we ask. It's our final question of all our guests. And Foo Fighters or Eminem?
Foo Fighters. Food.
Really?
You said
Why?
food.
Foo. Foo.
Oh, FOO. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Foo
No, no,
Fighters
M&M.
or
Okay.
Eminem.
M&M for sure, because I love M&M. When I was
All
growing
right.
up, I love the colors. I love the little ad that they have, in M&M, right? The dancing M&Ms. I think it has a lot with the branding, how it gets into your brain and then say, oh, they look so cute. Definitely.
All right. That's a brilliant answer. That's one of the better
Yeah.
answers we've ever had. All
Okay, that's good. No, it's great. I'm so happy that guys like you are really talking about these things. I think that's what slowly, one step at a time, starts making a difference, in our society. When your audience will listen, I'm sure other people will also talk about the same thing. And that's what we really want at the end of the day, is that bringing this whole thing into mainstream.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Amita.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.